Our guest is Jack Haley, and he is as familiar of personality as anyone, I would say. His voice familiar to radio listeners from not so long ago, and his face in the disguise of a Tin Woodsman, and without disguise is familiar to moviegoers from not so long ago, too.
Well, it's all according to what not so long ago means. I think it's quite a lot of time ago. For example, I think it was in 45, I think I had my radio show.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, in 1950, I had one of the first TV shows for Ford Motor Company. But time goes so fast, and as young as you look, it seems to be going slowly with you, not so long ago.
When did you first begin your show business career?
Oh, in vaudeville, way back in vaudeville. It was more or less easy to enter the entertainment world in years ago through vaudeville. There were many phases of vaudeville. There was the big time, there was the family time, and then there was the small time. And if your talents were just meager, there seemed to be a place for you. But today, they have no time for you. The young people have a more difficult job of getting on that first ladder rung than when I was a youngster.
What did you do in vaudeville? Were you a singer and a dancer? Or
first I was a song plugger,
Uh-huh.
which is non-extant today. There was no medium to advertise a song. If you wrote a song and if someone didn't hear it, it was just a song that was written, and it had to be popularized. Well, how did they do it? Well, they sang wherever they could get a crowd. They sang at racetracks, dance halls, and primarily the motion picture theaters. And they had slides. And if you were a song plugger, you stood in the darkness side of the stage, maybe in the orchestra pit, and then when the slides came on the screen, you sang the song. And that's they brought it back for a while. Remember with the bouncing ball? That was what you did. That's the only way they could popularize the songs. Even in Boston, where I came from, they had piano on a truck on the street, and if someone played the piano, the guy would sing the songs, and people would purchase them from the truck.
Right on the spot?
Yeah.
Did you sell many songs that way?
I didn't do that. I say in Boston.
Oh, in Boston.
Yeah.
Well, you were born in Boston.
Yes. But that's how I started in the business, and then I got a job in a girl act. Well, what's a girl act, Jack? A girl act is it's a small musical comedy in vaudeville. Well, this was a small time one. This was not on the big time. And it consists of a few chorus girls, principals, and a little plot. And I got the job, and that was the starting of my career, and I never stopped after that. Of course, I had ambitions to get a part and go out in what we call one in front of the curtain and entertain. And I did very successfully. I got a hold of another fellow, and he and I got an act together, and in 6 months it was unheard of. We were in the Palace Theater together, the famous Palace.
And who was your partner?
His name is Charlie Crafts, Crafts. I just buried him about a year ago.
Oh, I see. That was the beginning then. And the Palace?
Palace.
Right
Well, people don't, when they hear about the Palace, they don't realize its importance. See, there were around 40,000 vaudeville actors, or acts, and about 500 each year could get into the Palace, and a great number were repeats. So we have all those people, and with their eyes toward the Palace Theater. How can I get into that Palace Theater and get that wonderful trademark? That's what made it so popular. So when you trod that stage, you were something important because you were 500 out of 40,000. That's the history of the Palace.
It really helped your career. That as your credentials, you were ready to go. Huh?
You're the cynosure of all eyes. I mean, the producers see you. Ziegfeld went to the Palace. Dillingham, the Schuberts, everybody went to the Palace Theater. In its era, it was probably the most discerning audience of all audiences. agents, actors, producers, and sundry people, that are on the Broadway scene.
Did you go directly from the Palace then to the Broadway stage?
Not directly, no.
Mm-hmm.
No, they look you over. You had an apprenticeship, which you don't have today.
Mm-hmm.
One hit record, what you sing, and you've probably never been before an audience. But if you happen to be down in where is it, in Virginia? Where is it they have all the...
Nashville, I suppose.
Nashville,
Yeah,
Tennessee.
yeah.
If you're down in Nashville, Tennessee, and you happen to induce someone to make a record, and the record hits, you were a star right away. But in the old days, you had to serve your apprenticeship. And they looked you over very thoroughly. They didn't go by one audition, or not audition, but one viewing. They looked you over thoroughly. And then I finally got a Broadway show that made me a star, which was called Follow Through, in which I sang "Button Up Your Overcoat." Remember that song?
You introduced it on the stage.
That's true, yeah. And from then on, it was you then are in the Golden Circle, and then I was very blessed. I had a very successful career.
Was it easy from that point on then?
No,
I
never
don't
as
think so,
easy.
yeah.
Whether you're an author, there's the same way. Sits down at the typewriter and hopes it'll come out. When you do a play, you hope it'll come out right, and sometimes they don't come out right. And it's always an interesting thing that the audience are the ones who decide whether it's good or not. All those with the expertise, they falter.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know until the public says, "I don't like it. It's no good. What the hell did you put that together for?" And they all think it's so great.
You worked with Ethel Merman and Olson and Johnson, and
I worked with Ethel Merman. In fact, her first show, had a small part on the show before she was in the show that I was starred in, called Take a Chance. And she and I together introduced for the first time, "You're an old smoothie, I'm an old softie." Do you remember that song?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And,
didn't you use that on the radio with?
I did it with Gleason to TV.
Yeah, but I think you used that as a kind of a theme song on the radio show too.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I had a whole medley. But it was nice to be able to be associated with a hit song. Why? Well, yesterday afternoon at the Friars Club, they had their annual Dodgers send-off. The Dodgers go to camp Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And they all come to the club, and they give them a big luncheon, and O'Malley's were there, Walter and his son Peter, and the executives and all the ace players they could gather. And they give them a salute, and while they were there, they had an orchestra there, while they were there, they played my song, But when I was younger, it was nice to go into a cafe. As soon as you walk in, the guys in the orchestra play your music.
Immediately recognizable, and boom, you'd walk in.
New York, yeah. There are wonderful amenities connected with show business. People all over the world love entertainment, so that they love those that give it to them. And when you're a star, you're always assured of a front row down in some cafe or restaurant where you go, special treatment. And even as evil as Hitler was, he was nice to the entertainers.
He was. Yeah. Was he ever nice to you?
I never knew him.
Never.
No.
When did you first hit Hollywood for movie making?
I was in the same show I told you to Follow Through, which was in 1930. Mm-hmm. That was sold to Paramount Pictures for a picture. And I went along with the sale. They wanted me with the sale. So I came out here and made that picture in 1930. That was the first picture I made. Then I went back into on the stage again, and I came out after doing Take a Chance in 1933, and I was back at Paramount again, and then I put my roots down here at that time, and I stayed here. I went back for a show, come back and do pictures, but I've been here ever since.
Didn't you appear in a lot of Vitaphone shorts?
Yes. In fact, I have a picture I want to show you of my wife and I in a Vitaphone shot. This was before the two-reeler. Oh. I did some two-reelers first for Warner Brothers. But then I have one of the first, my wife and I did one of the first Vitaphone variety acts that was done. I have the picture here.
How long have you been married?
Over 50 years.
Over 50 years.
Yeah.
Now, Hollywood
first
marriages,
wife.
they don't last, do they?
No, you don't hear of our kind of marriages. You only hear the ones that of the divorce, you know. My son's my son's first marriage with Liza Minnelli, I hope that we're an example for them, because there's something in that friendship. I told Liza, I says, you know, there's more to this marriage than romance. I said, it's a friendship. Imagine of all the billions of people in the world, you have this one friend who's your wife, or if it's a wife, it's a husband. One friend of all these people. It's awesome when you think of it. And this is a situation, but it's true, because it's a tough thing to be a real friend. You see it in this Watergate thing. You see it in Connally, former governor of Texas, with his dear friend Jacobson, closest buddy he had in the world, an attorney. Turns on him when it comes down to if he can escape jail, he'll be all right. Let Connally go, his dear friend. There's very little Damon and Pythias in the world. Mm-hmm. So it comes down to one friendship. And that's what a marriage is, that real friend that you have. Nobody else. This is your family. This is also your children. They fly out of the nest, which if you're understanding it, that's life. And they have their own families, and they go off, and they have to worry about their own wives and their families and their husbands. And that leaves you two together. And that's the last trip down the road. That's where it's most delightful, that you know that you have this real person. It's very warming.
Sounds like a great piece of advice. I bet you're a pretty proud father, too. Your son...
I am, and I've been very, very proud recently. My wife is a rat pack. Is that what you call it, a rat pack? She saves... Pack rat, yeah. She saves and things. And she even saved a packet of letters belonging to my son. And a couple of them were by me. And when I read it, I just had... He was a teenager, and I just was proud that I've written this type of letter to him. So, as the other thread, you're talking about the material pride of success. Now, well, that's a different type of pride. That's not a real pride. That's not pride. You don't use pride there. Pride in something that you've given, not pride in something that he has done. You're just happy that you have a good son. That's most important.
That is important.
Sure.
Yeah. We're proud of the things you've done, and you're not even related to us. You've done some pretty good things. What did you do? Your first film was the Follow Through, and then you were in...
Jack Oakey and I did
Uh-huh.
Sitting Pretty. Jack Oakey and I did a picture, and called Sitting Pretty, and it was a very successful picture for Paramount. And there was a song came out of that. I didn't sing it, but the song was "Did you ever see a dream walking? Well, I did." And that song, I was very happy because I suggested these songwriters. They were neophytes, and the producer of the picture listened to me, and he sent for them and took a chance. And out of it, he got a smash hit, which is very unusual. You don't get them every time.
You've been associated with some pretty big songs, then.
Yeah.
Were you considered a musical comedy star? Or?
I was, sure.
Uh-huh.
I was always a musical comedy star. But I also could, I had the facility to act, too, in shows that weren't musical.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But being a vaudevillian, you know, in vaudeville you had to either sing, dance, play an instrument, or recite. What's the reason for that, Jack? Well, because you had to get off the stage. Today, at the end of... Aren't I garrulous? You didn't think I was just garrulous, did you?
All right, go ahead.
When you're on television, you do a monologue.
Uh-huh.
At a given point, you just bow. And they wipe out. Ask the people to applaud, they wipe out, and you go. In vaudeville, you had to get off. As the expression was, it's easy to get on, but how do you get off?
Yeah.
And you had to get applause. If you didn't get applause, no matter how good your act was, you had to get applause in order to sustain your bookings and get work. Mm-hmm. So they all devised different things, instruments, dancing, singing. or recitation. They used to have wonderful comedy recitations that got applause, or sometimes dramatic, and that got them off to applause. But in my case, it was singing and dancing. I studied tap dancing when I was a kid.
Your big finish wasn't with the American flag and all of that fireworks
No.
and the old the cornball one that they always have a lot of fun with, you know.
Well, Fred Allen was one of the first to do that. When at the end of his act, Abraham Lincoln's picture came down, the American flag, all kinds of things came down from the flies, you know, to applaud.
You were in a picture that was all about radio, and it was a spoof of, the so-called feud between Winchell and Bernie. Wake Up and Live.
Yes, Wake Up and Live. How do you remember? You're too young to remember Winchell and
well, I grew up with Walter Winchell and Ben Bernie, and you know the movies. They're still around. You get a chance to see them, and you were terrific in that picture. You were a Mike frightened singer, yet you didn't sing in that.
No, that was the fear. The two guys that I brought out here did the music, and there was a hit in that too called "Never in a Million Years Could There Be Another You." That was a big hit, and "Wake Up and Live" was a hit, and Alice Faye and I, and that was for Zanuck, 20th Century Fox. Now my son is vice president of TV. It's interesting, you know, if you get older to and have the mileage that I have, and then see things happen that you would never dream that would happen. Like, for example, when I was making The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland, and when we're hopping down the yellow brick road, who would ever dream that she would have a child and my son would marry her?
Yeah.
This is, and the same way with, as I just mentioned about the two writers, they wrote they wanted their songs sung the best they could. I remember Zanuck saying, "Try and find a device. Haley sings. Get a device, some kind of a gimmick. That's all it has to be for people to be attracted to this man's voice on the air." And they got very, very good singer. Too bad his life was cut so short because he'd have been a great Buddy
Clark.
Buddy Clark. And what made the melding so great? He was from Boston. I'm from Boston, and there was detection with the Bostonian sound. So when I would speak, he sang Bostonian. I sang Bostonian, and my speech was talking Bostonian, so they swore it was me.
Yeah, it was very good.
Fooled Luella Parsons completely.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. She wrote about it. I must have been taking lessons and everything. She was embarrassed about it. Then she called me down to Palm Springs to ask me if it was my voice. I told her no.
Was Luella kind to you?
Luella was a kind person, yes. Her husband liked me, Dr. Martin. She was a kind, and she was strong. If they all have their likes and dislikes, like everyone else.
You were in a number of films for 20th Century Fox, and then you went to MGM for The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, they leased me out. I was under contract to 20th. They leased me to Columbia too. I had several places I worked for them.
Did Metro ask for you in that part where they looked? Did they have you in mind?
Yes. No. Oh no. Buddy Epson. He tried for the part, and I don't know what was lacking, but they decided that they wanted me, and so they bought me, or leased me rather, from 20th Century, and I went over there. It was a horrendous job, horrible. I think 8 months altogether. Those outfits were so terrible.
How long did it take you to get into that costume?
Well, not to get into the costume per se was nothing. It was the makeup. The makeup took an hour and 45 minutes, and
you had to do that day in and day out.
Oh yes, even taking it off was a chore. And I was on radio at the same time and staying up late with the writers trying to get a show together. And between the two, I could sleep all in between shots. And Bert Lau, who had difficulty, God rest his soul, in sleeping, he used to look at me, sleeping on a reclining board. I couldn't sit down. I had a reclining board. He said, "That Haley can sleep on a meat hook." We just came back. I was in New York last week. Ray Bolger, the straw man. We met Margaret Hamilton there, and the three of us went to the Waldorf Astoria, and they had a tremendous toy exhibition of the wizard characters. And they had buyers, they had about 800 people, and it was a dinner, and we entertained. And
what did you do? How did you entertain? Did you just...
I entertained, well, Mervyn LeRoy, the producer, was with us, and he acted as the master of ceremony. He introduced me, and I went out and talked. And then at the end, I told him what I just told you about the old-time vaudevillians, how they had to get off the stage. And I said, recitation is a lost art. I said, I'm going to recite the type of thing that some of the vaudevillians use. Then I recited a thing I wrote called Visit Him. No, The Master's Hand, that's the one I use.
Well, we may...
And that gets me off with applause.
We may ask you to get off that way, but not yet. I want to talk a little bit more about The Wizard of Oz, but they're going to run that on television
Easter Sunday.
Easter Sunday this year.
Yeah.
You say it took about 8 months to put that thing together.
Counting our rehearsals, yeah. See, we had to rehearse, and we had... It's very interesting about that picture to realize that the man who directed that picture also directed Gone with the Wind, two of the great masterpieces in the motion picture world, and that's Gone with the Wind's never been on TV. The Wizard of Oz every year, I think it gets $1 million just for a shot on TV, and they never realized it would be that valuable when they made it.
Yeah. They never thought it would go that way.
Oh, in fact, it was a terrific gamble. It cost, I think, $2.5 or $3 million, which was a lot of money in those days. And today it would be unrealistic to make it.
They couldn't make it today, could they?
They could, but it would cost them a fortune. First of all, where would they get 125 midgets? They're not around. They're not making midgets any longer.
The Munchkins, huh?
Yeah, they came from all over the world. There used to be a vaudeville headline act called oh gosh, I can't think of his name. Singers Midgets. And they had a band, they had dancers, they had singers, had a strong man, they had a great headline act. And Mr. Singer knew that was his business, midgets. So when they made the picture, they came to him and asked him if he would get them the midgets, and he went around the world and got them. And then when they all got together, the different languages, they couldn't sing the songs, and the voices were so awful. Then they devised a way to have adults make the records. And then the midgets all mouthed it, and then they took the adults and gimmicked them in some way.
They probably speeded it up or something like that to get that higher pitch out.
Yes.
Did you work a whole day on each day you worked? Did you work a whole day, or did you work for 2 hours at a time, or was it in and out?
No, we worked all day, and the union had just come into to existence, Screen Actors Guild. So we only worked 8 hours. Otherwise, the old days they could work you beyond that, you know, to finish up a set to get off. And the only respite we had was when Judy went to school, because the state law in California, the children have to go to school, and they put a teacher on the set. The studio pays for it. That's a California school district teacher. And when it's time for her to go to school, everything stopped. They tried sometimes to get shots without her, but by and large we would hang around for an hour. It was always a welcome sound when we hear this teacher's voice, "Judy, school!"
Did it always come at a regular time, or was she a little flexible?
No, she was very adamant about it. She didn't care about the picture. She had her job to do. And Judy was certainly a sweet child, just a gorgeous kid, so exuberant, so full of life, and her whole life was ahead of her, and she was star-eyed, around the studio. She was in the first picture with me too, Pigskin Parade. Yeah, yeah. And so I saw her, and I watched the 3 numbers she did and listened to her, and I knew that she was going to be something very important because of that voice. Now, a voice is one thing. Then what are the other qualities with the voice? Which I had this brought to my attention last week ago Wednesday, in New York. I went to see The Wiz. And The Wiz is an all-black show, spoof, on The Wizard of Oz. And there's some moments in it that are very good. But they have a little girl playing Dorothy. And she's unattractive. And a little bow-legged. But she belts out a song, and that's why they hired her. But there's more to it than that. Particularly if you want an audience to believe that you have some big desire, like going back to Kansas.
Well, the whole thing is more than any one element. It's everything put together, isn't it? I mean, a voice and a personality.
Yes, but I can see the producer hiring her because she can belt the song out. What she does is tremendous, the song. But that doesn't sustain the show. That's all right to come on, do a couple of songs and off. Like Merman did in her first show, Girl Crazy. She sang one song, and it was a big hit. And I can't remember the number at the moment. And she was a big hit. Well, that's all right in that spot. But she happened to have, when she went in the next show, she had the quality to carry on and hold the audience with her performance.
I want to ask you to give us the benefit of your being there kind of experience. You worked at 20th Century Fox, and you were over at MGM. What was the differences between the operations of the two studios, from your point of view as a performer? Physically, there's no difference. You drive in through a gate. You go to the commissary. The food in both places are good. Why? Because they want it good for their performers. They want it good for themselves. So they get the best they can in cuisine. Makeup people are all tried and true. So all those facets of it were the same. The only difference is in the choice of the producers in the type of films they make. MGM had their style. 20th Century had their style. Warner had the guns and the gangsters, and they had their style. That's the only difference. And because they all have a commercial aspect to all of them. I don't think any producers or writers in those days got up in the morning and said, let's do a fine artistic picture. Let's do a picture that'll sell to people and make some money. That's the. If it happens to be artistic, they're very happy about it. You talked about the fringe benefits, so to speak, of being a star, a personality. You get a front table at a show or in a restaurant or something like that. What kind of extra added benefits did you get from the studios? Were they super nice to you? Did you get a car at your disposal here and there? Or no. What kind of glamour treatment did they give you, if any? Well, I wasn't that. To be very honest with you, I wasn't. That's you're talking about superstar now. There's a difference between a superstar and a star. And a superstar is one that the people line up at the box office to see just their name. My daughter-in-law, Liza Minnelli, she's a superstar. When she plays Las Vegas, they get money under the table to buy. They don't worry about if the people will come. They worry about who they're going to reject. And when she goes over to England, and to Europe, and I think it was in Germany or Sweden or someplace, she took $140,000 for her end. 10,000 people came to see her in a stadium type of place. That's a superstar. Those are the people that get the type of treatment that you speak of. They worry about them. They want, because that's a terrific asset. That's as good as gold. They take care of gold pretty good. Well, they take care of that superstar. And anything they want, and are they happy?
So that's the difference. I didn't have that. I just had, I was a star, but I was never that dimension.
They must have lined up at the box office to see Jack Haley.
I don't think they lined up at the box office to see me alone. I was always with some pretty good stars, with me, and it was the package and the combination.
In 1940, you were on the stage with Higher and Higher.
Yes.
And a few years later, you made the movie of that.
Yes, that was Sinatra's first picture. Boy, he was thin. Remember all the Sinatra jokes about his thinness? My God, he was thin. I saw the picture on the Late Show not too long ago, and he was terribly thin.
They used to joke about him standing behind the microphone, and all you'd see was his bow tie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was he pretty scared making that first picture?
No, he had good control of himself from singing in the band, and he had, by this time, he'd been out on his own, walking out on the nightclub floor, and playing the motion picture theaters as a vaudeville attraction. And with that kind of, you become really hardened. Your fear is all gone. You have no trepidation. And so it was his first acting part, but acting is just being natural, more or less. Acting is more difficult on the stage than it is. You have to project on the stage. In the studio, you just be yourself. It's like, to me, always was a rehearsal. I never could quite get used to it. No audience. And some people are excellent rehearsers. They rehearse beautifully. When the curtain goes up, something's gone. They don't project. Well, those rehearsals are great on screen. Gary Cooper was one. You couldn't hear him past the second row, but on the screen he was just some magic. I don't know what it is.
You said when you were making The Wizard of Oz, you were putting together a radio program. I'd like to talk about the radio things a little bit. What were you doing? What show was it at that time?
I was doing. I believe it was Wonder Bread for the bakery. I forget the name of the company.
Continental?
Standard Brand. No, Continental Bakery. Yeah. I was doing that at that time. I'd worked for National Dairy. I had a show for them a couple of years. And
was that Seal Test?
Yes, Seal Test. Yeah. And we had I had quite good ratings, but it's a mystery about your careers. People have valleys and they have peaks in their careers, and I didn't like that when I started to get a little older, and that's why I became interested in business instead of sitting home waiting for an agent. I became curious, and then I went into a subdivision, and I had better success than I've ever had in I'm speaking financially now, than I had in show business.
Your real estate interests out in California here?
Yeah.
Stay close to you.
Yes.
Would you say the radio days were a valley in your career?
No, but I'm saying that no matter what your position is, I mean what part of entertainment you follow, there's always. I mean, look at Marie Dressler. She was one of the great stars at MGM, and she got so low that she had to borrow money from her maid that lived with her, cook, maid and a cook, and she had to borrow money from her because of the valley that she was in. That's the type of, and it's rather ignoble to sit home and wait for somebody to call you to hire you. That is you don't feel like you're part of it. If you manufacture something, then you manufacture the product, keep busy at it, and try to sell it. But in show business, you have to sit home and wait until the agent sells you or someone wants you, and then and then if you're around a while, it says yes, well he's been around and so forth. I don't know what the dialogue is, but I know that it's tough for a lot of people in show business.
You've done so many things in so many different areas of show business, which, not considering a financial success or a popular success, which of the things that you've done were you happiest with?
Well, there are two versions. One is the easiest job in the world was radio.
Mm-hmm.
You took a piece of paper and read it for a half hour, which wasn't totally a half hour because there were commercials in between. That was the easiest. It was like stealing money. That's number one. That's one. The theater is the most fulfilling job. When you walk out on the stage and hear those people laugh, and that you're privileged to do that, that that God gave you the talent to do that, it's a wonderful feeling, and it's joyous. Particularly if you're in a great show, like I've been in great shows where the people scream because of the situations and the jokes and the lines and so forth. And it's a pleasure to leave your apartment and get in the cab and drive down to the theater and get made up and go out there and know you're going to make a lot of people happy for 2.5 hours every night and twice on matinee days. Those two. Now the picture to me is just drudgery. Mm-hmm. You have to study your lines at night and go on the set and know them. And now, all right, let's try it again. You do it over again. Something happens. Something's wrong with the film. So something's wrong with the sound. Let's try it again. And you do it. I've heard them say, we'll have a lot of fun in this picture. I fail to see any fun at all. To me, it's just work. There's no joy in it. The only fun you have is when you're in between shots, when you're cutting up and talking about the old days or telling experiences in show business, which actors are prone to do. But as far as work is concerned, I see no enjoyment in it. And then when you see the finish, you know you could have done it better. Everybody.
Yeah.
So there's no real joy in it. And the theater, they're out there to tell you. I write this in my autobiography, I even tell about going up to get that Oscar. It's something you did 7-8 months ago, that you are not sure whether you could remember everything that you did. Now you're receiving an Oscar for this. Where in the theater, at opening night, that's the real Oscar. And everybody shares in it. The audience, they give you the Oscar by their applause and their acclamation. And they swarm backstage at the end of the show, and you can tell the difference between genuine appreciation and a hit than you can if you're fair weather friends. Oh, that was fine. It was a great show. Mm-hmm. There's a difference because you're smart enough to know the audience tell you.
You were just elected president of the Friars Club.
Yes, Buddy Hackett superseded me.
Uh-huh. What exactly is the Friars Club?
The Friars Club is a social club that has overtones of charity. They've given over $5 million to various charities since their inauguration out here. And it's social, it has a gymnasium, card room, has wonderful food, and it has great shows that they put on, entertainment. Much like the Bohemian Club up in San Francisco.
Now, if you were at the playing cards at the Friars Club sometime, and you were just kind of kicking it around with some of your cronies, reminiscing about the old days, so to speak, what first favorite story do you have about the old days?
I haven't any favorite. When you talk about nostalgia, one story or one thought starts a new one, and I can't remember any particular story about. I have a very long one like that I have in my autobiography about falsifying the claim that the audience, you can't fool an audience. And in substance, that's pretty true. An audience are very, very smart collectively. They have a sense when something's wrong, that something's wrong with a person on the stage, or someone has missed their cue. But this was a complete reversal of that, and an actor, and I don't want to go into the detail of it. I shouldn't even mention it. You can cut it out anyway. But this fellow, this man, a juggler, was drunk on the stage.
Uh-huh.
And he did a cannonball at the end of a thing he had on his head, and the orchestra were afraid that it was going to hit them on the head, and he was drunk. Hangover he had. And a famous old-time actor was making a personal appearance. His name was Robert Warwick. And at the end of his sketch, he always made a speech. And he told the audience, they knew this man was something wrong with this man. He was dropping the plates and everything. And he told them that he was a war veteran. He said he's an Australian, and he fought under the same flag as you, Canadians, was up in Canada. And before he finished, they were cheering for this guy with his hangover. I grabbed him and got him. I said, they want you. He thought the police wanted him. I told him, and he came out on the stage, and they just cheered him, And all he said was, he's a pal. He's a pal. That's all he could say. So it really fooled an audience.
Fooled the audience.
Yeah, the audience thought that guy was suffering a shell shock. Shell shock. It was bottle shock.
Audience have enjoyed you for so many years. What have you been doing since the last film, aside from the real estate things? Just kind of taking it easy?
Well, I went to New York for that trip, and went there because I was going to be in congenial company, and also that gives you a chance to see a show or see your friends. And I entertain. I'm a Catholic, and I'll entertain at Catholic breakfast, communion breakfast they call them, or dinner that they may have, and I have a whole lot of Catholic jokes, and I also can function as master of ceremonies. That's all I do in the theatrical end. Jackie Gleason's going back on TV. He'll probably want me to do something. We're very close friends, and but as far as I did a Welby because Robert Young, who's a friend of mine, Dr. Welby, called me up and asked me to do it. He said, "There's a part, gee, I wish you'd do it for me." So I did it, and it turned out very, very well. And but I'm occupied all the time. I don't have time to sit around like you just said. So when you're over there in the club and you're talking, I have no time for that. I'll go to my office and there are letters to write. There's always something to do, and or to read. I never find myself saying, "Gosh, honey, let's call up Tom and Mary and see what they're doing." Like a lot of people have to do. I don't need that. I'm occupied completely, and that's one of the schemes of life. I mean, I think that's a very important part of life, to be occupied instead of moping around the house.
You really got a great philosophy of life. You're great.
I have a religious philosophy that I haven't got time to go into now.
We've just got time for the Jack Haley super finish.
Get the tin suit. I said at one of the dinners, they had a dinner for Eliza at the Maskers Club. And I said, they wanted me to wear my tin suit here tonight, but I refused. I said, the last time I wore it, I said, I crossed my legs and almost became Jewish.
That's quite a finish. Thank you, Jack Haley.
Okay.